Hey everyone, and welcome to Arc Thoughts, the spearhead from space. The start of the third Doctor's time in Doctor Who. First off, I want to say that I really enjoyed this arc. It was a quick 4-episode affair. Nothing major comes up from this, but it was a good introduction to Jonathan Pertwee as the Doctor, as well as giving us some more interesting little tidbits of information about the show, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So overall, good story arc, interesting. I liked it. But what is the overall story? Well, basically, this wraps up a bit of a storyline from Season 6. For those of you who may have missed Season 6, basically the Doctor has been exiled to Earth now because of, traveling through time and changing history. Because the Time Lords apparently frown on trying to do good things and make the world a better place, rather than just sitting back and observing. So the Doctor was forced to go to Earth, has had the secrets of time travel taken from him, and has been forced to regenerate. Which culminated in the Doctor stumbling out of the TARDIS, into a random field in into London in the 1970s. That's a quick detail that I will talk about more in a minute also. But yeah. So the Doctor is picked up by some members of UNIT who are in the area because strange meteorites have been crashing into the Earth around here, and they want to look into it because UNIT has had some experience with some bad things. And the Doctor, so yeah. And one of the things that comes from this is whenever they're looking at the Doctor, they look him over physically. They do blood samples, they do x-rays, and they note some weird physiological details about him. 2 hearts, low heart rates, 10 beats in a minute. And his blood is not like human blood. So that's one interesting tidbit that comes from this little arc is, hey, the Doctor has been told, it's clearly not human because of regeneration and such, but here are more details to support that idea. He doesn't have human blood, he has 2 hearts, etc. And and we're also reintroduced to General Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. He's a character who's popped up, at least with the second Doctor, and is now one of the bigwigs at UNIT. Sorry. And basically, the Doctor has to work with UNIT at this time because, there's an invasion coming to Earth. Because those weird little meteorites are actually the first wave. And Pat, if you watch this, I'm saying those words specifically for, an invading force of aliens. Basically, they send down these materials to make these strange mannequin plastic-like figures that are meant to help them conquer the planet. And yeah, so it's up to the Doctor, Lethbridge Stewart, as well as one of the scientists, Liz Shaw, to put an end to this invasion because we don't want to be taken over by aliens. Now again, like I said, it's a quick 4-episode affair, so it's not like anything major or crazy or insane, but it's good. It's a quick introduction to Jonathan Pertwee as the Doctor, as well as, a nice look at how the tone of the show has changed, because we have some big changes. We have a new Doctor. Things are now in color. And honestly, overall, the tone of the show is a bit different. Really quick, how many of you have watched Nick at Night shows? I'm talking Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie, The Brady Bunch. Just like the 1960s, 70s television that you would see here in the States. It feels kind of like that. Overall, we have these serious episodic stories, and at times, we have those moments of comedy that they play up a little bit more. For instance, and this actually happens, I'm not kidding, Jonathan Pertwee, is in a wheelchair, and he's trying to escape from the hospital, and they play the sped up footage, so it's humorous looking and more believable that he's going fast. It's just little details like that. With Troughton and Hartnell, we didn't have that. And yeah, so clearly the show is going to be a little bit different than what it was before, but Not necessarily in a bad way, just different, because, there are so many changes to the series at this point. So, in conclusion, overall, I really like the Spearhead from Space. It's a good story arc. It introduces us to Pertwee. It introduces us to, his restrictions on Earth now. Because he's trapped here for the moment. And I liked it. So, yeah. Alright. Arc thoughts. Doctor Who and the Silurians. And then around the edges, I just have a few prevalent words. Trust, us versus them, morality, knowledge. Because they were prevalent throughout the episode, and I'll try and address them as I talk about it. Cool. Hey everyone, and welcome to Arc Thoughts, Doctor Who and the Silurians. The second arc of Season 7. Coming in at 7 episodes. I have to say, this is a very interesting, very thought-provoking arc. Because... well, the story for the arc is basically that there is a nuclear facility somewhere in London working within the confines of a cave system. Basically, their intent is to take nuclear energy and make it safe for, unlimited electrical energy. Which is a noble idea. However, there are some complications within this facility. Number one, the facility has been leaking power, for the last couple of months. And two, within the cave system, there seem to be some kind of weird reptilian monsters. We find this out because the opening for the very first episode shows, two miners going down, exploring the caves, because these are scientists who are just, taking their day off and going, okay, I want to look at this place. I want to see what's going on down here. I'm curious. And one is killed. One is frightened so terribly that his mind just breaks, unfortunately. And so units and the doctor are called in to look at this facility. And one of the things that I want to note is that the doctor is somewhat reluctant to go to the facility, but needs to be coerced by Liz. Basically like, oh hey, there's so much interesting stuff that you can learn and look at and blah blah blah. And I'm kind of getting the vibe that, Jonathan Pertwee's doctor is more into doing things for himself. He's not like Troughton, who was always fighting for the greater good. Like, I'd say he's kind of chaotic good at this point. Like, he does good things, but he's also looking out for number one. Like he showed when he tried to leave in the TARDIS, but, he couldn't because he lost the secrets of time travel. But anyway, so they're summoned. They go down to the nuclear facility, and, they look into things. They find some, they go into the caves, they explore, and they come across, the reptilian monster that killed one of the scientists, as well as some other aliens known as the Silurians. Basically, these were aliens, or creatures, or whatever, that lived on the Earth thousands of years ago. Millions of years ago, even. And basically, they went into hibernation at one point because they had, they had heard about a potential disaster coming in. Basically, from what I got, it sounded like a meteor was approaching the planet, but that meteor ultimately became the moon. And so, now, millions of years later, they're coming back to the surface, and they're like, okay, we would like to, come back to the surface and live and exist. But there's the complication of, hey, we've run into some of your guys as it is. They've killed some of our people, so we're not exactly very trusting of you. And so it's up to the doctor to kind of act as a liaison between the humans and the Silurians. And honestly, it's a pretty complicated story. Because you have to have the trust between the two groups. But trust is kind of a hard thing to come by whenever people are being killed or people are being attacked by giant monsters. And some of the scary stuff that the Silurians do, is very concerning. Especially to Stuart, who's working on behalf of the United Nations. He has to look out for the good of humanity. not science like the Doctor. And, it's just crazy. And, quick spoiler warning, because there's going to be some bigger stuff that comes up here. But, towards the middle or end of the arc, we get down to biological warfare with these Silurians. They unleash an infection. They infect, one of these soldiers that was exploring the caves that they captured at one point, and they send it back to us, like, oh, hey, everything's fine. But, this person has this weird disease that we know nothing about, and it slowly starts to spread throughout the facility. And, there's always going to be that one character who's like, oh, I don't believe your ridiculous stories of reptiles in the caves and just all this other crap. And, that proves to be very bad, because one of those people is one of the very tippy-top higher-ups of the facility. He came in temporarily to see what was going on. He heard about the complications and unit coming down, and then he leaves after the infection has started to spread. So he goes back to London. He's going to the Ministry of Science. He takes a train, he hops in a cab, and it's very, very concerning. Like, it's been a while since I've seen 28 Days Later, but it feels kind of like that. Like, oh yeah, everything seems all fine and normal, but, or like, it's like flu season, I guess. You seem fine, normal, you pass by a couple of people, some guy randomly sneezes, oh, whatever, it's no big deal. But it is a big deal in this case because people start to die. There's serious symptoms, and it's just very concerning. And what's worse is it gets from London to France. Yeah, it crosses the channel, into the English Channel, into Europe. And, thankfully, the Doctor and Liz were able to work on a cure and figure things out. But, yeah, like, this could have ended so disastrously. The situation does get resolved. These Silurians are sent back into hiding, in their base to hibernate again. Because, basically, the Doctor makes them believe that there's going to be a serious amount of radiation that will kill everyone within the base. So they go to, hide from that and hopefully not die. The Doctor, however, is able to foil the, nuclear fallout, thankfully. And, talks with Stewart about potentially trying to make peace with the Silurians once again after all of this. Despite the fact that, we had some major complications with them. They have some technology that, is good and interesting, but could also very badly hurt us. Like, they have these weird blinking lights, and they make these, like, hypersonic sounds that we're able to kill people. Like, our soldiers needed to use guns and stuff to try and stop them. These guys can just naturally do something. And they unleash this plague that spreads so quickly. And so the story ends, with the Doctor and Liz going back to unit headquarters because, they need to get some supplies or something like that. And Stewart has ordered a bombing of the Silurian base underground, basically to seal everything up. Because, he's looking out for humanity's good. And the Silurians have shown themselves to be very strong, very potential, very scary enemies. And, it leaves you with the moral gray question of, could we have made peace with the Silurians? Was it the right thing to seal them back in their base? What do we do? And honestly, at this point, having seen everything, knowing all the details, I'm siding with Stewart in sealing them back in their base. Like, it's harsh, it's rough, but they've been gone for millions of years. They tried to kill us, and yeah, maybe in the future we can make peace. But at least for now, we don't have that clear and present danger that can come back so easily. Despite the fact that they were able to manipulate the tunnels and tunnel through into the nuclear facility quite easily. So, but, But we could write that off with bad writing. So we'll see how that goes, basically. But definitely overall, a good, interesting arc. It poses a lot of interesting questions. It really makes you think. And overall, I would definitely very highly recommend this arc. Like I said, it's 7 episodes, so there's a lot that goes on. But if you pay attention, I think you'll be just fine. I have to say, The Ambassadors of Death is a challenging arc for me personally to recommend. It's not necessarily bad, but it does take a bit of time to really get on with the story, and it just feels like it really drags. Again, this is 7 episodes, so they have a lot of time to cover, and it does pick up toward the end, but just muddling through the mystery and figuring out what's going on, who these mysterious characters are, all that stuff, it really, really hurts the experience for me. So, what is the story? Well, Brigadier General Lethbridge Stewart is at, I believe it's Space Central, basically the British NASA. They have sent up a capsule to get a ship that had gone to Mars and was on a return trip, but communications had just collapsed for whatever reason. So they have this manned capsule, meet up with the ship at some point. They dock. The crew's about to enter the ship, and again, they lose communications, and something weird is obviously going on. And basically, it takes some time to get to what the actual issue is. So there are some quick spoilers for you, just a quick heads up. Basically, what it is that the astronauts on the ship had run into some aliens on Mars. And the Martians, the aliens who were on Mars, have come to Earth, are close to Earth in their UFO, and have been brought down to Earth. I forget by who and for what reason. Well, I know what reason. Basically, some criminals somehow, some people within the government learned about the aliens on Mars, captured a couple of them, brought them down to Earth, and wanted to lure, some more of their race in so that they could show the world, hey, aliens do exist, and these guys are going to threaten us because of a small incident. Okay? The thing with these nameless aliens is that they're very radioactive, and basically, even to a touch, just, hey, handshake, a human being will die. That unfortunately happened, killing one astronaut on Mars. And yeah, so basically it's a very large conspiracy involving some very high up government officials, I believe within the British government. The fictional characters, not actual 70s British political persons. But yeah, and once we get to that point in episode 4 or 5, it's cool and interesting. But one of the things that just frustrated me so much was, oh hey, we get clues of this person's evil and this person's evil and this person's working for the mysterious group. And then, at certain points, okay, fine. Just meet me here at blank time and we will talk about this and I'll let you know everything that's going on. Okay, cool. One of the times, it's just a bullshit cover-up. Another time, Doctor and crew go to meet the person and, oh hey, they just got killed literally 5 seconds before they got there. Or, oh hey, this other person who's going to inform is killed. It's just in my notes, it just left me with several dead ends. Hey, we're going to meet blank. Oh, but they died. Oh, this was a cover-up. Oh, that was a lie. So maybe I'm a bit biased in that regard, but I don't know what to say for the arc. So I mean, other than this story that does get interesting around episode 4 or 5, there's no character growth for the Doctor. There's no expansion of the world and lore. These guys are nameless aliens. I even looked on the Doctor Who episode guide and they don't have a name for them. So what the crap? I don't know. So, I unfortunately have to say, The Ambassadors of Death, I would skip it. And so, those are my thoughts on the arc. It's decent once it gets going, but it takes a little too long to get there. Hey everyone, and welcome to Arc Thoughts, the Inferno, the final arc of Season 7 of Doctor Who. And, really quick, the obvious thing that I want to say is I really enjoyed this longer arc. Basically, it has a lot of interesting ideas and concepts going on within it. And, because they have seven episodes to explore it, they at least get to develop everything. Unlike some things where, like, oh crap, we have to rush this or we have to rush that, which happened once or twice in the early seasons. So, what is the story? Well, the story is that there's a drilling operation going on that is about to break the Earth's crust for the first time ever in history. The Doctor's there to oversee the operation and to do some of his own personal work on the TARDIS console, because the Doctor is still obsessed with getting off of the planet Earth because, he set out originally to go through the universe and do good things. And so to be stuck in the 1960s London of Earth, it's limiting. Well, there are unfortunately some complications with this procedure of breaking through the Earth's crust. One of the big things that's going on is there's this weird green ooze. And I honestly went right to, like, Nickelodeon slime. But no. This unexplained green ooze, whenever a person touches it, they start to revert to a weird primal green werewolf state, I will basically say. And that's weird and honestly makes no sense. And honestly, they're just there for, like, hey, we need something else to, like, increase the urgency of this event, but also to act as, like, kind of a, hey, obviously there's something not good because this green ooze is coming from the Earth that you were digging into, and it is changing people and killing them. And, honestly, it's not very much explored. It's basically just, hey, people get turned into these monsters, they attack people, and honestly, like, physical touch, like my bare hands, if I get touched in the face, I get touched on the arm, I will start to mutate into one of those things. So it's definitely a very dynamic, very scary, villainous monster, but it has nothing to do with anything. Now, one of the big interesting things that happens in this arc is, it's around episode 3 or 4. The Doctor's working with the TARDIS console. He's had a test or two with some of the nuclear power. Like, basically, uber levels of power in this place. And he runs another test. Unfortunately, this test works kind of, in that, yes, the TARDIS does go somewhere, but basically, as the Doctor puts it, he shifts sideways in time to a parallel dimension. I don't know all of the details about this timeline, but one of the major differences is, I think this is accurate to say, that, World War II didn't go as well. Because he does run into the doppelgangers from our universe. Lethbridge Stewart, Liz, and some of the other characters from the drilling operation, and they're not exactly good people. Again, this is just speculation, but yeah, that was scary. Like, one of the big tip-offs for this is the Republican service forces that they are working for. And also the evil eye patch that Lethbridge Stewart wears. Also the fact that, like, this drilling operation is now, like, like a science labor camp, basically. Like, these scientists aren't here because of academic curiosity. They're here because, hey, you have the knowledge in the science, you're going to do this, or we are going to put a bullet in you. And, yeah. And basically, the interesting thing about this is the fact that they are closer to getting done with the drilling operation than we are in our Earth. Like, on our Earth, when he leaves, it's about 49 hours away. At the beginning of this, they're 3 hours away. They've been really at it. And basically, the Doctor gets to see what happens when they do break the Earth's crust. And honestly, it's doomsday. In a word. I kid you not. Like, basically, they break through the Earth's crust, and, like, literally, there are major earthquakes, lava starts flowing. It's just pure insanity. Like, honestly, I'm going to call this Earth 2 is doomed. And what's worse is the fact that, the Doctor explains to, Lethbridge Stewart, Liz, Mr. Sutton, Petra, these other characters, like, hey, I can potentially, this world is beyond saving, but I can go back to mine. The thing is, I need your help, and I can't take you with me. Because it would create a dimensional rift and blah, blah, blah. And basically, it'd just be bad science mumbo-jumbo. And, with a real interesting bit with this is how Stewart, goes from being, like this in-control commander guy, in our Earth to very much a coward, who needs his brute squad to back him up. Like, oh, I don't want to die, and you're going to take us with you, or I'm going to kill you. Eventually, in the end, evil Liz is forced to shoot evil Lethbridge Stewart, because the Doctor was able to reach her and convince her that, hey, I am from another Earth. I can do this, and I have to do this. And that's, like, a bulk of the story. Like, from episode 3 to 4 to, like, episode, it's either 6 or 7, is that. And I like that story arc. It's a lot like Sliders. Patrick, if you see this, we'll probably have to talk about Sliders at some point, because you have the whole series, and honestly, now that I'm older and more mature, I might appreciate it better. But, yeah. So it's a very good arc. Explores the idea of parallel Earths, in the multiverse, like I talked about in the Flash videos. And, yeah, like, I just like some of the concepts. The monster thing is kind of just, hey, we need, more conflict to stretch this out fully to the 7 episodes. And also to show, like, hey, there's obvious issues with this. And honestly, you could draw some parallels to the Silurians. Basically, the head of this operation is, like, full steam ahead, no matter what happens, I have to do this. Not because he failed in the past and he's trying to make up for it. It's just, he's that dedicated. He's just crazy. And unfortunately, he's one of the people who's infected and becomes a primal, as I call them. So, definitely, overall, I would recommend the Inferno. 100% for sure. Interesting idea, interesting concepts, and just, it's really engaging. Like, it keeps you on your toes, like, what's going to happen. And, like, there are so many tense and cliffhanger moments, unlike what I had with the last arc, The Ambassadors of Death. Like, it kind of dragged at points, unfortunately. But, yeah. And so that concludes my thoughts on Season 7 of Doctor Who. Well, the final arc, anyway. And really quick, because I learned about this thanks to the blurb that the person put underneath the video. And really quick, I want to thank you for that. I forget your name, but I will put it I will put it in the credits somewhere. Do not worry. Basically, they explain that, number 1, this is the final, 7-episode arc that Doctor Who ever has, which is awesome because, yeah, these are cool and interesting, but again, it's kind of hit or miss. And number 2, they explained that this would be the final appearance of Carolyn John as Liz Shaw. And, I looked into that really quick because I was like, what, why, what happened? Like, they didn't have a conclusive, oh, hey, Liz is going to go to another department of unit or something like that. It was just, oh, hey, we're having a happy little laugh. Everything's good. Scene. No. What happened was behind the scenes, Barry Letts, yeah, I'm calling you out, dude, was like, Liz Shaw is too much of an intellectual, and, you know, she doesn't really gel as well as being a doctor's companion, so I'm going to get rid of her. Like, we're not going to renew her contract for the next season. Fuck you. Honestly. She was a good character. She was very helpful. Without Liz, the Doctor would have been killed in the very first arc. Again, you know, it's a fictional television show, so of course. But still. She was good. She fit. But, oh, hey, sorry. We just don't care for Liz. And you know what? Okay, I'm not saying, like, she was angry or spiteful about it, but she worked consistently, you know, after Doctor Who all the way up until 2008. I mean, there was a time where she took some time off because she did have kids, and hey, that's awesome. I respect you, Carol and John. You were cool. And she did ultimately pass away in 2012, but legit. Like, I love that Carol and John, you know, left Doctor Who, but did continue to do things. And that's cool. And I'm glad she got to live a full, long life. I'm just annoyed that, you know, this good character, they're like, no, we don't need her. And, like, we'll see how season 8 goes. But Barry Letts, you suck. Just saying. I liked Liz. She was good. So, yeah. The Inferno, go watch it. Barry Letts, I don't care for you personally. All I gotta say.